Today, I am reviewing the Skytech Gaming Rampage gaming PC. If at any time you'd like to explore this product for yourself and grab it at a great price, be sure to check the links below the video. If you have been waiting for the sweet spot in the current GPU generation to finally pull the trigger on a new rig, I think the Skytech Gaming Rampage might be the exact machine you have been looking for. I have been putting this specific configuration through its paces for the last 2 weeks, and while it is not a perfect machine, it hits a very specific performance tier that makes it incredibly hard to ignore if you care about raw gaming frames per second. You can check the link in the description below if you want to look at the current pricing or see if there are any specific bundles available right now, but for now, let's talk about what it is actually like to live with this PC on your desk. Starting with the internal hardware, the combination of the Intel Core i5-14400F and the new NVIDIA RTX 5070 is a very interesting choice. We are seeing a lot of pre-built companies pushing the absolute latest chips, and while the 14400F is not the flashiest processor on the market, it is a workhorse that does exactly what it needs to do without generating the massive thermal overhead that you see with the higher-end i7 or i9 chips. In my testing, this CPU kept up perfectly fine with a 5070 during heavy gaming sessions. I spent a good amount of time running Cyberpunk 2077 with ray tracing enabled, and the CPU usage remained stable. You are getting 24 gigabytes of DDR5 memory running at 6000 MHz, which is a bit of an unconventional capacity, but it is plenty for gaming and multitasking. I did not notice any stuttering or memory bottlenecks while having a dozen browser tabs open alongside a game. The star of the show is clearly that RTX 5070. This card is an absolute beast for 14400p gaming. If you are still playing on a 1080p monitor, this card is overkill, but if you are rocking a 1440p high refresh rate panel, this is where the card shines. I was consistently hitting well over 100 frames per second in most modern titles at ultra settings. Even in notoriously demanding games like Alan Wake 2, with DLSS enabled, the experience was smooth and visually stunning. The 12 gigabytes of VRAM is a solid amount for current titles, though I will say that if you are planning on doing heavy 4K video editing or extremely high-resolution texture work, you might find yourself wishing for a bit more headroom in the future. For pure gaming, however, it is the perfect companion for this build. Let's talk about the build quality and the chassis itself. The Skytech Rampage case is a classic mesh front design, which is something I always look for in a pre-built. Airflow is king, and by using a mesh front panel rather than a solid piece of tempered glass, Skytech has ensured that the fans are actually pulling in cool air rather than just spinning against a wall. The cooling solution is a standard air cooler, and while it is not a massive liquid cooling loop, it is more than sufficient for the i5 chip. I checked the temperatures under load, and the CPU stayed well within the safe operating range. It does get a little audible when the fans ramp up during an intense firefight in a game like Helldivers 2, but it is not what I would call distracting. If you are wearing a headset, you will not even notice it. One of the things I really appreciate about this specific Skytech unit is the lack of bloatware. There is nothing more frustrating than buying a brand new PC and spending the first 2 hours uninstalling trial versions of antivirus software and random manufacturer utilities that you'll never use. This system came clean, which meant I could just plug it in, run the Windows updates, grab my GPU drivers from NVIDIA, and start installing my games. It saves a significant amount of time and keeps the system responsive from day one. If you're curious about the specific components or want to see if they have updated the port configuration, definitely hit the link below to check out the store page for the most up-to-date specs. Now, I have to talk about the downsides, because no PC is perfect. First off, the Wi-Fi 5 card. In 2024, seeing Wi-Fi 5 on a machine with a 50 series graphics card feels a bit dated. While it is perfectly functional for most people if you have a high-speed fiber connection and a Wi-Fi 6 or 6E router, you are technically leaving some speed on the table. If you are a competitive gamer who plays titles like Valorant or Counter-Strike 2, you should be using an Ethernet cable anyway, but if you rely solely on wireless, you might want to consider a cheap USB Wi-Fi 6 adapter down the road. It is a minor gripe, but it is worth mentioning for those who care about network throughput. Another thing to keep in mind is the included keyboard and mouse. Look, they are free, and they work, but they are very basic. Do not expect mechanical switches or high-end sensors here. They are essentially placeholders to get you up and running. If you're a serious gamer, you are likely already planning to use your own peripherals, but just know that the ones in the box are really just there to satisfy the requirement of a complete desktop kit. Do not let them be the reason you decide for or against this PC. The power supply is an 850-watt gold-rated unit, which is a great inclusion. It gives you plenty of overhead if you ever decide to upgrade your storage or add more expansion cards in the future. I am glad they did not skimp here, as a cheap power supply is the easiest way to ruin a good build. The cabling inside the case was tidy, with zip ties used effectively to keep the airflow path clear. I opened the side panel to check the cable management, and it looked like someone actually took the time to route things properly, which is not always the case with mass-produced systems. If you're the type of buyer who wants to get into high-fidelity gaming without having to spend a week researching individual components, sourcing parts, and worrying about potential compatibility issues or assembly errors, This is the exact demographic Skytech is targeting. It is a plug-and-play experience that delivers high-end 1440p performance right out of the box. Conversely, if you are the type of person who loves to build your own PC for the sake of the process and wants to handpick every single component, like the specific brand of RAM or the exact motherboard model, you might find a pre-built like this too restrictive. You are paying a premium for the assembly and the warranty, and you have to be okay with that trade-off. I also want to touch on the aesthetics. The Rampage case is understated. It is a black box with some nice ARGB lighting, but it is not so aggressive that it looks out of place in a professional home office. You can easily turn the lights off if you want a stealthy look. The build is solid, the weight feels right, and the tempered glass side panel is easy to remove if you ever need to get in there to dust it out or install an extra SSD. Speaking of storage, the 1TB Gen4 NVMe SSD is fast. Game load times were snappy, and Windows felt instantaneous, as you would expect from a modern NVMe drive. If you are a gamer with a massive library, you might fill that terabyte up faster than you think, but adding a second M.2 drive later is a very simple process that even a beginner could handle. One of the biggest concerns people usually have with pre-builts is the warranty and support. Skytech includes a 1-year warranty on parts and labor, and they have US-based technical support. I have heard mixed things about pre-built support in general, but having a dedicated warranty is a massive safety net compared to building your own, where if a part dies, you are often dealing with multiple different manufacturers to get an RMA. Having one single point of contact for the whole system is a convenience that is often undervalued until something actually goes wrong. Ultimately, the Skytech Rampage with the RTX 5070 is a very well-balanced machine. It does not have unnecessary fluff. It focuses on the core components that affect gaming performance, and it is housed in a case that actually lets the hardware breathe. It is not the absolute cheapest PC you can find, but when you look at the cost of these individual parts, the price is very competitive. It is designed for the person who wants to play Elden Ring, Baldur's Gate 3, or Starfield at high settings and high frame rates without stressing about thermal throttling or hardware bottlenecks. If that sounds like your typical gaming Sunday, then you will likely be very happy with this machine. Again, if you want to check the current price or see if there are any deals running, there is a link below that will take you straight to the product page. I have been really impressed with the stability of the system during my time with it. I did not experience a single crash or blue screen, which is a testament to the driver stability and the build quality. It is a solid, reliable, and powerful gaming desktop that does exactly what it promises on the box. If you have any specific questions about how it handled a certain game, or if you're curious about a specific feature, feel free to drop a comment below. But for a general recommendation, I think this is one of the strongest mid to high tier pre-builts currently hitting the market. It is a no-nonsense approach to gaming that prioritizes the user experience and the frame count above all else. If you are ready to upgrade from an aging system or looking to jump into the world of high refresh rate 1440p gaming, this setup is a fantastic starting point. Just make sure you have a monitor that can actually do justice to the output of that 5070, or you're going to be wasting a lot of potential power. Thanks for sticking through the review, and I hope this helps you make an informed decision on your next gaming PC.